Welcome to Unholy Vibes. Yet again, it's me, your boy, your host, Alex. And today we have another very special guest, Anna. Anna here has a crazy story I got a little bit of a taste of, and she agreed to come on the show and give us the detailed story. So, Anna, go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, your whole deal.
Sweet. So my name is Anna. I currently board dogs for a living, waiting on disability because Crohn's is awful. I live in the South of the United States and I have a ghost in my house.
Yes, you do. Anna and I met on, you may have heard of it, this little independent app named TikTok. And I was on the Unholy Vibes TikTok page perusing, and I follow Anna, and I caught one of her lives one day. I want to say you had just started your live. I like to just ask strangers if they have ever seen a ghost or if they have a ghost story. I do it all the time. I did it even before I had Unholy Vibes. I just love it. I get a thrill out of it. So I asked Anna, I said, have you ever seen a ghost or do you have a ghost story? And she went on to drop a few bombs, honestly. And at least that's how because when you said that, literally, I was like trying to type to keep up with my own real life reaction. It was literally like, what? What is happening? So, anyway, I don't want to overhype it, but Anna, please give us the background, give us all the details, walk us through your experience, your story, where it all started, and where it's at now.
Sweet. I can do that.
Great.
So I bought my house in 2021 with actually my ex-girlfriend. And what it started out as is she started hearing voices and it sounded like my voice calling to her. And so she would come up to me wherever I was in the house. Usually it was on the other side of the house, opposite where she was. And she'd be like, "What, were you calling me?" And I'd say no. And then I had already gotten some like weird vibes. And there was two things that the previous owner had left in the house. There was an old Coca-Cola clock. And then there was this old like angel oil hanging lamp thing. And so I got weird vibes from both of them. And when she started telling me this, I got an even weirder vibe from them. So I ended up taking them from the other room into my basement. And once I took them to the basement, she started hearing that voice call to her, my voice call to her from the basement. Yeah. So not long after that, I got rid of those items. I said, "Hey guys, you can have them back," because the people I bought the house from were family. So I said, "You can have this stuff back now. I don't want it."
Well,
I didn't
yeah.
tell them why though. So maybe I should have. But also they're like super Christian and like they're older and stuff. And so I didn't really think that they believed me anyways. So I didn't say anything.
Okay. Okay. So you got to ask them a few questions for me because what if they had been experiencing stuff and maybe I mean, I don't know them, obviously, but what if they're like, these things also creep me out. I'm leaving them behind.
So this is the thing. So the lady who owned this house before me is my kid's great grandmother. And whenever I would come over here with their dad, we would come to visit her when she still owned the house. She would have this lamp that would go off and on. And she'd be like, "Oh, that's my daddy. He's just coming to say hi." But nobody else, like her daughter, didn't believe her. She'd say, "Mom's crazy." Right. So Granny, that's what she, is referred to as Granny. She believes in that sort of stuff, but grandma doesn't.
Hmm.
So when I was taking that stuff back to grandma, there's no use having a conversation with her about it because, she's super Christian, doesn't believe in that kind of stuff that I know of. And it wasn't worth having that conversation.
Now that's an interesting thing you bring up because I don't, I don't know if you practice any religion or Christianity or anything like that, but Christians believe in spirits, angels, devils, right? So
Sometimes.
yeah, I guess it depends. Certain
Mm,
denominations have different beliefs on it, but a lot of the time they have some very basic belief of some sort of spirit, good or bad, right? And a lot of times people don't acknowledge their own belief because it's too scary and it's something they don't understand. Maybe that's how I'm looking at it. Some people do that. They're just like, nope, don't want to talk about it. Uh, anyway, I digress. So you got rid of the items, the clock and the lamp, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did things keep happening after you got rid of those items?
So as far as the voices, I never heard the voices. So my ex-girlfriend heard the voices, and apparently it was my voice that was calling to her. But no, I still have things that happened to me. After that, I had a little pumpkin guy that I got from Publix, had those little googly eyes, little fuzzy hair and everything. I had them on top of my shelf. One of them would turn. And so like it would be facing directly out. But then, like I'd leave and go somewhere and then come back and it's facing the other direction after nobody had been in the house.
Okay, spooky. We love it. Okay.
Spooky, right? More recently, what happens is I'll listen to my music on my phone in the shower. Well, the phone's not in the shower, but
Right,
it's
right,
on the
right. Yeah,
counter.
yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, why did my music turn off? It didn't. It just got like the volume got reduced by like 75% and nobody touched it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's happened probably about 5 times in the last couple weeks, actually.
Okay. I'm going to ask a little bit of background here on your ex-girlfriend. Did she have a history of spooky stuff or being sensitive to spooky things or being able to see or hear things that no one else could?
I don't remember, to be honest with you, because we broke up at the beginning of 2022.
Oh, so it's been a minute. Okay.
It's been a while. Yeah. And so we didn't even live in this house together for a full year. I've always had those sort of things happen to me, but I don't remember. Maybe she had, maybe she hadn't. I just kind of took all of that information that I gained from that part of, my life and said, oh, trash can. Just kind of stuck it in there. So that's I gotta free up space somehow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it. Clean up space on the hard drive. So
100%.
what you're saying is you don't want to give her a call right now and ask her the questions?
I don't even have her number. She deleted my phone number. She only talks to me via email, and she lives somewhere almost in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
So
I was
no
joking.
idea.
I definitely would not have expected you to reach out to her. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Mhm. No, all
Okay.
good.
So from what you remember though, she heard your voice. What were you saying? What was this voice saying in your voice, I should ask?
I remember it said, "Hey." It may have said like, "Hey, Lacey," but basically it was me, my voice, trying to get her attention. And at first, she heard it from the side of the house that had the bedrooms in it, and I was on the complete other side of the house, which is closer to like the living room and the kitchen. And then after I moved those items down into the basement, it was coming from the basement. So I don't know if it was like right there at the top of the basement stairs
Mm.
or if maybe she heard it like echoing. I don't know. But another thing about the basement is that I'll go down there sometimes and it will smell heavily like cigarette smoke.
Oh,
Nobody smokes cigarettes. The last time, I mean, cigarettes have been smoked in my basement since I've owned the house, but only because it was super, super cold and that was before I quit smoking.
gotcha.
But that would have had to been a year ago. And there's no reason for just cigarette smoke to be popping up out of nowhere.
Right. More questions emerge. Okay, so I had an episode back in season 1. A woman told me that she would smell cigarette smoke. Same kind of situation. Like there's been no smoke, right? It'd be somewhere it's like she doesn't smoke, I don't think, but she would smell cigarette smoke and she saw that as a sign of her grandpa checking in on her or something like that. And
Hmm.
I think it's interesting because you said that your grandma would say like, "Oh, that's just so and so saying hi," right?
So that was actually my ex-husband's grandmother.
Ex-husband's grandmother. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's so hard to keep track of the family tree, you know?
I know.
Um,
It's all over the place.
it'd be like that. So I apologize if I'm getting things mixed up. So ex-husband's grandmother had a very kind of similar thing she would go to and say, "Oh, it's just so and so." So let me ask you this. Would you, if something started happening to you, are you going to be like, "No thanks, that's too scary for me"? Or are you going to try and be like, maybe it's, whoever trying to just say hi? Like, where does your mind go to?
The latter. So I've had things happen before where for no reason at all, I knew it was my grandfather coming to say hi.
Okay.
Like, hey, I'm still here. There was even one time where a white moth appeared out of nowhere in an apartment that I used to live in, and I just knew it was my friend that I was friends with in college after, and she'd already passed away.
Okay.
So like I believe in that feeling where like you just know without any logic behind it. That's not to say it's not spooky, because it is a little bit spooky sometimes, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just know what it is and you don't have to worry about it. So
It's the gut feeling, the intuition. A
hmm
lot of people, I don't know if you're spiritual or religious or any of that, but different people of different, like, wherever they fall on that spectrum. Some people say they have a deep spiritual connection with the spirit realm or spirit world, or different wavelengths or dimensions. And I think certain people do naturally have a thing that others don't. Because, broken record for anyone who listens to this show, I'm not sensitive to spiritual things. I don't have spooky experiences. I don't have really holy experiences. I have a few blips on the radar, but I recognize those, but I'm not over here like seeing ghosts and hearing voices all the time. I have friends, I have family that are very sensitive and very, they would say, in tune with those wavelengths, those vibrations, the vibes, whatever. So maybe you just have that natural little, whatever it is, sensitivity, just naturally built into you. Some people do, some people don't. I don't
hmm
see dead people. I'm I'm just, that's why I do this show. I like to hear other people's spooky experiences to get my own thrill out of that, right? Like, there was one other thing you were talking to us about on the live.
Did I talk about the fingers?
It might have been that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Tell me,
Was it that?
expand on that, please, if you will.
That's when I lived in my parents' house. I was in high school, and it started around my freshman year in high school, which is actually coincidentally when we moved into that house. So it was, I don't know if I want to say it was every single night, but it was most nights that this would happen, because my father would refuse to let me close my door at night. He said, "You need airflow. If you leave your door open, you'll have better airflow." And I'm like, "But, I also have a ceiling fan, so, like, I could just close it." And he's like, "No, you have to have it open." And I'm like, "Weird flex, but okay." But then what would happen is I
Very
would
common parent flex too. Like, no, you're keeping your door
right.
open. Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
not that parent, by the way. I don't do that. If you want your door close your door. Don't care. That's fine. But my thing is when I was, trying to go to sleep, I wouldn't roll over toward the wall. I would roll over toward where, like, the majority of my room was, which is also the direction where my door is. And they would leave the hallway light on, and I would just see these long, spiny fingers do like this around the door. I never saw, like, a figure, but I saw these spiny fingers, and they were so freaky. That's when I would turn over toward the wall and go to sleep. I rolled over and I was like, "Nope, not doing this." Next thing I know, there's this little boy standing in my room.
No,
Yes.
no.
Yes, there was.
Hey,
Yes,
first
there
of
was.
all, this may be a horror podcast, but I'm too scared now.
No, I don't know how I made it through that night. I have absolutely no idea, because he looked like he was of Asian descent. He had, like, like, the super dark hair, and I don't wanna say it was a bowl cut, but it was shorter, but it was also kinda long. So, I see him standing in the middle of my room. He's not moving. He's just standing still, staring at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, this can't be happening. This is terrifying." I roll over again, pull the sheet over my head, and I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope." But this is the problem with that. I could now not sleep until I knew that he was gone.
Naturally.
So I roll over onto my back, not all the way over, right, to look into the rest of my room, just on my back to do like this. He was standing above me.
Oh,
He was at most 6 inches away from my face.
I'm glad we saved that one for last. Holy shit. Dude,
Yeah, that was awful.
I got the unholy vibes. You know what I mean? Dude, that is wild. That is
hmm
that's wild. Did this only happen one time?
I only saw him one time.
And the fingers were only one time as well?
No, that happened a lot.
Okay, that happened a lot. which is
Mhm.
worse.
Yeah, because it had a very negative energy and feeling to it. When I would see those fingers, it was just like, you know what's coming now. And I'm like, no, I don't. Go away. Like, I don't want any part of this.
It's not an exaggeration to say I would perish.
Mm.
The first time I'd be like, gone, soul's left the body, I'm done for. And maybe that's why I'm not built to be sensitive to spooky things and see things that aren't there, because I don't know if I'd be able to, or I'd be like, maybe I should touch those fingers, try and hold the hand, see what happens, you know?
Oop. That never
Oh.
could be me. Never could be me.
So did
No.
you tell your parents about this?
I don't think I ever told them well, did I tell them about the little boy? I have so there are other issues with my parents that a lot of those memories that I have in relation to them, I block out. I know for a fact that I told them about the candle that flew off of my dresser, which I haven't mentioned yet at all,
Yeah,
but I was
spoilers.
getting ready to leave. Yeah, I know. I was getting ready to leave to go hang out with some friends one day, and I had a bunch of stuff on top of the dresser. The only thing that moved was my candle that I had on there. By the way, this was in the middle of the top of my dresser.
Okay.
It flew off
Not on the
onto the
edge,
floor.
not just falling
No,
off.
no. And even then, I was the only one in the room. So there's like, how would it even, you know, candles are like a pound. Like, not a breeze from the fan isn't going to knock it over.
Yeah, and some candles are heavier anyway, but yeah, that
Right.
doesn't just
Well, and the thing is,
happen.
too, is when it fell onto the floor, it was spinning.
Dude, what?
So it didn't just fall and stop. It fell and spun. So I know I told them about that. And then I also had a vision in that same house that they had left the house and I was there by myself. And I called them and I made them come back home because they were right around the corner. I said, "No, you're not leaving me in this creepy ass house. You're coming back. I'm not doing this. Get here now." That was like right up there with the little boy, too. Right up there.
Okay, while the candle is scary, I'm gonna keep little boy is number one. That is terrifying. Little
Yep.
boy candle fingers, but also neck and neck. That is terrifying. What was their
Mhm.
response?
They didn't believe me. They didn't
Oh,
believe me. They were probably like, "I don't know what happened with the candle. That's weird." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. So what about the vision that I had and made y'all come home early?" And they were like, "You were just daydreaming." And I'm like, "Right. That's what happened." Okay.
tell me more about this vision.
The vision. Okay. So they left to go to a friend's house. They lived around the corner, like in the same neighborhood, just around the corner. And I was like, "No, I want to stay home. I want to get on MySpace. I want to just chill and talk to my friends." And so I stayed back. Well, as I'm sitting there at the desk in the computer, it's in the living room upstairs in front of a window. I hear the door slam to my parents' bedroom, which is in the basement. And I'm like, "That's so weird. Are they already home? This is crazy." Right. So I start not running, but like quickly walking because I was going to go say hi to them and say, "Oh my gosh, you're back." That wasn't long.
Prancing, one might say.
I was a prance, skipping, skipping.
Skipping.
I was a skipper. Yes, I love to skip.
Some may say a frolic.
A frolic. Yes.
Sorry, I'm being silly. Sorry, I'm
Yes.
interrupting
No,
you,
it's
Lisa.
okay.
Please
We
continue.
love the silliness. I'm not going to forget the story, so it's all good.
This is a Silly Goose podcast.
100%. So as I get to the top of the stairs, I can't move. First of all, I'm holding onto the railings. I'm no longer able to move. My vision goes out, so I don't see what's in front of me. I might as well have had my eyes closed. Then I just see this image. It was at the bottom of the stairs in the house. So like the way that their stairs were, it was stairs, landing, stairs. So not at the landing, but at the bottom of those stairs that were actually in the basement. This is where I see this scene happening. It is an older lady in a floral dress on either the second or third to last step. And then there are two kids on the floor in front of her, and they were getting in trouble. I couldn't hear what she was saying. I don't know what they did, but she was scolding them because they did something wrong. And I was like, huh, that's weird. So when my sight came back, I was like, that was really weird. Never had anything like that happen to me before. I go down the steps. I take the left, which goes like into the den, and their bedroom is right off the den. The door is wide open. So I run back upstairs. I said, absolutely not. And that's when I called him. I said, y'all need to come back home right now.
Because the door had slammed, right? That's why you had originally.
Yeah, that's why I went to the stairs because I heard the door slam.
They're
Yeah.
home. That was your indicator. First of all, wow. That's
Hmm.
wild. Absolutely wild. It's like I'm watching The Conjuring.
It felt like The Conjuring. I'm not lying to you.
And you're still a teenager at this time, right? In your teens, you're living at home?
Yep, I want to say I was probably a sophomore in high school at that point.
Yeah, this is you said MySpace. Shout out MySpace. Heck yeah, dude.
MySpace days,
Ugh.
yes.
And they just didn't believe you. That sounds like too crazy, and like that story has no rhyme or reason, or not story, but like your vision, the story you told them, would like
Hmm.
what would have been the point of making that up? Is what I'm getting at.
Right, right,
Not that like if my kid told me that, I'd be like, what? It'd be more like that. What is that supposed to mean?
right. Because
Because
how do those two events like go together? Like, why would a door slamming and then an older lady scolding these children? What would those have to do with each other? And I still don't know.
I mean, how old was this house?
I want to say it was built in the 70s.
Personal rule of mine: anything 70s are iffy still, but anything pre
Hmm.
1970 is an automatic no for me because just the likelihood of there being a haunting goes up the older you get, right? And
Hmm.
the 70s was 50 years ago. So you get even
Hmm.
farther back, you're like, yeah, of course, ghost. So much more likely to be haunted. And so, yeah, 70s though, still very iffy. I guess any haunting from any era can happen, right? But that's just like, usually you see it in places older than the 70s. And there's
Hmm.
also a lot of, before I even get into my speculation, what do you think that was about? What do you think that experience was? You say a vision, but what? Let's unpack that a little bit.
I honestly I don't know. I do know that there was a lady who passed away in that house from natural causes.
Got him.
And so, yeah. And so I think it has to do with her. Ever since I had that, I was like, that has to be the lady, but I never knew who that lady was. I don't have confirmation of what she looked like or anything like that. So, but it was always a feeling that that was her and maybe that was her grandkids. But I still don't know what that has to do with the door slamming. Maybe that's why they got in trouble. Maybe they got in trouble because they slammed the door and they were running around the house. I don't know. But also, why show that to me at that particular moment?
What was the point?
Right.
You know what it was? It's so you could come on here and tell the story one day.
Oh, 100%. You need more ammunition here. We need to give you more stories.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's some theories out there. I don't know what you believe as far as time or dimensions, things like that.
Mhm.
I'm open to a lot of things because there's just so much we don't know, right? There's more that we
Right.
don't know than we do. And if you're religious, like I have a Christian background, I'm a religious person, but even then, we have, put all the Christian books together and it's that thick or maybe that thick. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Harry Potter's got more pages. You know what I mean? Like there's more
Right.
lore in all these other things. Put all of the religious texts together and you've got a stack, it's still not that much. There's only so much we
Mhm.
know if you come from a religious background. So what else, right? You're filling in some blanks, which you would say maybe those are the only important things I need to know. Sure, maybe. But then you get into things like this. Some people think that when you see ghosts or visions or things like that, that you're just seeing a different point in time and it's not necessarily happening right then and now. So maybe that was it. Maybe you just saw a little blip into the past, which maybe they look and see you as a ghost. I don't know. I don't know, right? It's just fun to talk about, fun to think about. It still just boggles my mind. What was the point? Was there a point, or
Mhm.
were you just saw something that you just saw something, and it's still scary, still creepy as hell, but it's just much harder to explain when it's not like a ghost being like, "I'm coming for you" or whatever, right?
I've heard that theory before because I watch, I'm sure you know who they are, Sam and Colby. I watch them.
It rings a
They
bell.
do a paranormal investigating channel, but they had an episode where the investigator that they went with, that's the exact theory that he presented to them.
You have too many things happening to you, first of all. And it seems like a lot of it happened in this specific house that you lived in as a teenager. So once you leave and you move, there's still some things in your current place, obviously, but do you think it was that house and that space specifically that was like a lightning rod for supernatural events?
No. So my theory is that while there were things specific to that house, for instance, the lady and her grandchildren or whoever the relationship was to the kids, there were certain things like that. But as far as the other thing, I have seen or I've experienced things like the fingers since I was in elementary school and middle school. So I think that that more so followed, maybe it wasn't me, but it more so followed a person rather than being tied to a house. Because I saw that in the house that I grew up in when I was in elementary and middle school. That was in Iowa. I saw it in the house that I lived in with my parents while I was in high school. That was here in Alabama. I saw it in an apartment in a different town in Alabama. And I mean, like, it's just kind of gone everywhere. I don't know if I want to say the exact theory that I have because my kids are right here, but it has to do with a particular organization. I think that that has a strong tie to it.
You're just going to pique my curiosity like that?
We might have to do a part 2 to this one.
Way to drop a little teaser. Well, we'll put a pin in that and we'll keep communicating and figure out a time to do some follow-up on that specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's interesting. I need to hear more.
Yeah.
But there's the theories of like Insidious. You've seen Insidious, right?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
house isn't haunted. It's the boy. And it's the thing, it's just attached itself to a person. I've had other people on the show that we believe there was something attached to just an inanimate object. So it could be a person, it could be an object, it could be a location, it could be all three. You know,
100%.
so there's infinite possibilities here. Wow. Ooh. The fingers are going to be the follow-up one because that one, that imagery is used a lot in scary movies where you have the little, fingers come around the door. And so you're saying this has happened to you since childhood and it's followed you around.
So I haven't actually seen the whole fingers thing since I lived in my parents' house when I was in high school. But I think that that particular thing just kind of developed over time and it kind of showed up in different ways.
Okay.
Let me put it that way.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Like you said, we'll explore more of that another time when you feel ready for that. But the little boy, let me ask you this because I've got to ask, get a little bit more background, do my due diligence. Any sleep paralysis ever?
I actually have had that before when I was in middle school. Every morning at 6 o'clock on the dot, I would hear a whisper saying, Anna, wake up. And I would feel warm air on my face. Like somebody was breathing on my face.
Are you sure that wasn't one of your parents? Like, hey, wait.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% sure. Because I would finally reach the level of courage that I needed to reach for my light. Actually, I had a touch lamp. So all I had to do was touch it. But I had to reach into the pitch black to do so. But when I turned on the light, there was nothing in it.
Okay. So like you were pretty quick in being able to like, okay, talking, hot breath, hit the lamp, nothing. Okay. Sleep paralysis is very interesting to me. And I know there's probably plenty of explanations, but still you never know. Okay. So you had a little bit of that, but with the fingers, with the little boy, with all these other happenings, this was definitely not sleep paralysis. You're up and about, you're out and about, you're moving, you're in bed for some of these experiences, but you're definitely awake is what it sounds like. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. And you told your parents about the vision and the candle. Did the fingers come up? Did the little boy ever come up?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I know that I told my friends about it. It would spook them every time. They're like, that is crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't really want to go home and go to sleep in that bed, but I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah. It's like, what else am I supposed to do? And that's the crazy thing is like, as a child or a teenager, if you are truly sensitive to these things and you're being haunted or whatever it may be, you're seeing ghosts, there's no user manual on what to do. You're
No,
just
there's not. There's not
stuck.
at all.
Yeah. So was your standard reaction when these things happened to just like turn over, cover up, and pretend it's not there?
Yeah. Yeah, except for for some reason with that little boy, I had to make sure he was not in my room, and he was just closer. But yeah, so whenever I would see those fingers do like this, I was just like, "You know what? I'm not acknowledging that." I would turn over and I would go to sleep. Next thing I know, my alarm was going off in the morning
Yeah.
and I was waking up getting ready for school.
Did you ever stare? Did you ever like just watch them, see if they did anything?
Oh, yeah, for sure, because I would not wanna move for a second, so I would just stare and look like, "Am I really seeing what I'm seeing?" And it was just there.
That is wild.
And so I'm like, "Nope, I'm going to sleep now for
Right.
sure."
Truly wild. And I can't wait to follow up on that. But let me ask you this. You don't have to
Mhm.
get too deep into it if you don't want to, because it's like your own personal stuff. Did you grow up religious or spiritual?
Yes, I was raised Catholic at first because my mom is Catholic, and then we switched and started going to a Lutheran church, which is, Christianity, just a different denomination because my grandparents were Lutheran. So we went to the Lutheran church. And then once we moved from Iowa to Alabama, my parents had found a Presbyterian church and we started going to the Presbyterian church. But since I moved out of their house and I'm doing my own thing, I tried a non-denominational church. I didn't really care for it. So I'm more spiritual than I am religious for sure.
Right.
So
You have quite a background in religion, though. Do you, like now with your current life, when you experience anything, what is your go to? Do you sage? Do you pray? What do you try and do to, or do you just say, no thanks, not acknowledging it? Like you kind of use that as the standard.
so I do try to sage. I haven't done it in a while because life has been crazy. But I mean, just for a specific example, when my phone turns down, while I'm in the shower or whatever, I just say, "Hey, could you not do that?" And then I, reach for it and I turn it back up. I'm like,
Right.
"That's not what we're doing today. I'm listening to my songs,
You're
man."
ruining the vibe.
100% vibe killer, man. Like, get out of here.
Uh, I can see that. The ghosts
Mhm.
that haunt me are real vibe killers.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? You can communicate with me all day long, but what we're not gonna do is mess with my tunes. Okay?
That's
No.
funny. So, because I've met other people that they sage, some pray, some sing church songs or just uplifting music
Mhm.
to combat the spooky vibes. And I always go back to an experience that I had where I didn't always used to be into horror and spooky stuff when I was younger.
Mhm.
And I remember going to the movies to see a horror movie when I was like probably 17. So even then I wasn't that into it. And I got home and my family was gone doing whatever. I don't even remember where they were. And I get home and it's dark and it's late and I was just like scared. I just had the heebie-jeebies. I just had to go
Mhm.
turn some cartoons on to just, lighten the mood. And I think that stuff works because you're just changing the energy and the atmosphere around you to
Mhm.
not really invite those negative vibes, spooky stuff. So I get it. Yeah. Oh, ooh. I'm gonna have to listen to some church songs or something after
There
we're
you
done
go.
here. You've done a thoroughly wonderful job of spooking me. It's been really fun. This has been good. So
Oh, thanks.
is there any
Thanks.
other fun stories you want to dive into? Anything else that you want to mention? Do you want to discuss some more? Do you want to speculate on some of your happenings? Because some things aren't happening anymore in your adulthood and your current life, but some things
Mhm.
are.
Well, and I do actually have a theory about that because for a few years I was actually taking an anti-anxiety medication,
Okay.
and I think that was keeping I think it was prohibiting, right? Like being able to be sensitive to that and everything because now that I've been off of it for a couple of months, it just stuff started up again essentially. Not really things being moved like they were before, but with the music being turned down, it was the other night, my dogs kept barking and I was trying to go to sleep and I just had this just really off vibe, and I couldn't really place it. And so whenever I look up into like the rest of my room, the lights are all off, remember? But I didn't see any shadows. I didn't see anything. I just had this like really weird vibe, and my dogs wouldn't hush.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, huh. It's interesting to me because, when you turn off parts of the brain, or like, you're working with parts of the brain, like, so if you're trying to like combat anxiety, there's probably more that happens with that than we actually realize, especially not being, medical professionals and stuff like that. And so I'm wondering if maybe those things are tied together.
I think that that is a fascinating theory and can of worms of
Hmm.
brain chemistry and spirituality and how you
Hmm.
can intermingle them.
Hmm.
My mom frequently mentioned she is a very spiritual person. She does spiritual work, or like light therapy. No, wait, that might not be the right word. She runs a crystal shop. She does crystals and
Hmm.
oils and tinctures and herbs and saging, and she's in tune with the spiritual realm. And she's been on the show as just like a brief guest a few episodes back. And she believes that, well, and some of this kind of borders on conspiracy theory, but she believes, or has an adjacent belief to that, to the idea that certain things in modern society, specifically American society, cause a spiritual desensitizing and weakening. And it has to do with brain chemistry and your physical body. There are things about
Hmm.
your chemicals and your, all that kind of stuff that may inhibit a spiritual experience potentially, which I can sort of subscribe to that idea because, like you said, when you're taking different medication, obviously mental health is like one thing. And there are people who used to think that if you were having a mental crisis, you were possessed, right? But it's like, it's weird waters to navigate, right? But I also believe that some people are naturally more prone to mental illness or spiritual sensitivity or heart disease. Different people have things that are hereditary in them and some don't. So,
Hmm.
and it's kind of odd because me, not sensitive, my mom and my sister, super sensitive. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know, right? There's no real way to know. But I like that idea. I just am so ignorant when it comes to any of that sort of science or pseudoscience, it would really be called, because we just, how do you measure spiritual sensitivity, right?
Well, how do you prove that? Because there are so many things that go on in the brain
Yep.
that we don't even understand. Like personally, I think that everybody is innately able to do that. They're able to access that part of their brain to where they are sensitive, but not everybody does or knows how to. I think it's more natural of an ability to access that for some people than other people, but I believe that everybody can do that. They have the
Yeah.
potential to
Yeah.
be able to do that.
No, I can get behind that. Yeah. It's just, I'm on the other end of the spectrum here of like, part of me wishes, like, man, I wish I could be a little bit more sensitive to those things. And
Hmm.
I'm just not. And part of me thinks that it's a blessing, but potentially a curse, because what if I'm trying to have a really holy experience instead of unholy, and I'm just kind of,
Right.
my range is smaller. I have a smaller window. Not that I'm totally shut off, but I'm not able to access the full spectrum. You know what I mean? Where I have
Right.
friends and family that are like, I can really, I, whether they like it or not, they're kind of experiencing a little bit of both. So it truly is fascinating. And I really like that idea. It's like, we all probably have the capability, but maybe who knows what's keeping us, right? Who knows? It could be a variety of things. So good theory, though. If you want to dive deeper into that, please. I'm ready to listen to what you have to say. If you think you put a bow on it, that's fine too. We're just
Yeah,
here
I
chilling.
think I'd have to like kind of put my thoughts down on that one because it's just been something that I've been thinking about recently, especially since having come off of the anti-anxiety medication. So just kind of putting that together as a theory of mine, but I think it's tied. So I don't have any like specific, concrete anything, but just from experience, like anecdotal type things, it seems like it's related.
you're not the only person who thinks that. So I'm sure you could find a lot of information. It's just tough though, because some people, there's a lot of just information out there that
Hmm.
it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. And so you have to kind of be discerning and use your gut and hope, hope for the best, I guess. And
Hmm.
I've had enough people on the show to realize, like, and I already have this kind of point of view, but I don't know everything, obviously. Like, I'm open to all sorts of ideas and explanations because we just don't know. So we can run with the theory
Hmm.
for now. That's just how it works, right? So I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from.
Hmm.
And you should, if you're interested, I have an episode called Unexpected Haunting. It's very third eye kind of opening kind of thing. And when I was interviewing this woman, I it's so not in my realm that I was just like, this is wild, but I'm here for it. I'm here for the ride. I'm here to hear what your experiences are and what you have to say, because it just kind of helps add, we're just taking pieces here and there and hoping they fit together. Right.
Hmm.
So anyway, any other stories you want to share with us? You want to give me one last shiver down the spine before we go?
Sure, I got one.
Oh, dude, a
I got one.
bottomless well of
Okay.
spooky.
So this one, it might be a little bit spooky, but it's more confusing to me. And the reason I'm saying this is because maybe somebody who watches this will actually have an answer for me, because Google doesn't have one.
Okay.
Okay. Google doesn't have one. So there was one day where I set up my space to do like a little meditation. And so I got my yoga mat out, because when I meditate, I usually like to lay down on my yoga mat. Got my candles set up. Well, what happened was the candles that I used at the same time, they were all different scents. They took me back to my childhood. It ended up being a childhood regression thing. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. But what ended up happening is I had this, it was a name that came up into my head. I could just see it spelled out in my head. And it was Helvec. And I guess it's pronounced Helvec,
Okay.
but I don't know what that means. And I've been trying to figure out what it was, because, when you're meditating, I don't know. I don't know enough about meditating to know, like, oh, do just, words just come out, or do names just come out at you? Sometimes with people, they'll have like their spirit guides or whatever, like their names will come out.
Right.
But I can't find that name anywhere. And I just think it's so strange, because it's not anything that I have said before that I know of. It's not anything that I've come across. It's not anything that I've heard. And Google doesn't even know. And I just think that that's so crazy.
That is odd. And this kind of ties in with the one I was telling you about with that previous guest. I don't know. I know so little about spiritual
Hmm.
awakenings and meditation, but maybe you might look at that and say, that might be someone that knows a little more. And you might be able to pick up on things that
Hmm.
I'm not, because I'm not in that realm. So yeah, that is interesting. I'll ask my mom about that, because she is in that stuff, my mom,
Hmm.
whatever. But hey,
Yeah.
she's a resource. Anything else you want to dive into or speculate or talk about?
I can't think of anything else.
Well, listen,
Mm-hmm.
part 2 coming soon, right? Let's do this
Mm-hmm.
again. And I am sure there's plenty of questions I should have asked you, but it's hard for me to think of these things in the moment. I'll be editing and be like, I need to DM her. So
Yeah.
just be ready for more questions. Be ready to do a part 2 whenever, no rush. Just wanted to say I really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us your stories. I can't wait to have you on again. And I hope you had a decent time. I hope you had fun. I hope you had a silly use time. Thank you. Just thank you so much. If you want, please tell people where they can find you, where they can reach you, any social medias you want them to follow, give them your ats, and I'll obviously post them in the description as well.
Yeah, for sure. So most of my, actually, if not all of my social medias, it's gonna be some sort of variation of Zechius, Zechius, or Zechius11. So TikTok, I think, is Zechius11. Instagram is Zechius. YouTube, I want to say, is Zechius11. So like, you search Zechius and you'll most likely find me.
Check out her TikTok. It's got plenty of, because I have seen some of them. I didn't see the boy one though. There's spookies, there's sillies, there's a little bit of everything. It's a good channel to
Mhm.
follow. Be sure to check her out. I'll have links in the description of this episode. But thank you again. Really, thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful connecting with you.
I have had a good time. I'm glad that you asked me to be on here. It was a lot of fun,
Yeah, I'm
for sure.
glad. I'm glad. Well,
Yeah.
That's all for this episode, everyone. If you have any questions about these stories, reach out to me on Instagram or on TikTok at Unholy Vibes Pod, or YouTube at Unholy Vibes Pod. It's all the same, guys. So reach out if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want some follow-up, you want to hear more from Anna with these stories, and we'll reconnect and get more out of her, right? Thank you all for listening. This has been Unholy Vibes. Stay spooky, and be sure to refer any of your friends or family that may have suffered from spooky stories or ghosts or anything like that, anything in between. You guys know the spiel. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.